Square Enix has announced their latest financial results, and I think it's better put lack of financial results. Their net sales are down 15%. Operating income is actually up 28%. HD Games net sales down due to decline in sales of new titles compared to last year, which had Kingdom Hearts games on Steam. But subsegment returned to profits due to lower development costs and advertising expenses. MMO subsegment sales and profits down as the previous year had Final Fantasy XIV Dawn Trail. Games for smart devices, PC browser subsegments down on weakness in existing titles. Publication net sales down 3%. Amusement net sales down almost 5%. Merchandising net sales up 32%. And I will say, by the way, anytime I go to like a comic convention or an event where Square Enix is present, their merch is legit. Like some of the figures that they make, I feel like they don't get enough credit for. Square Enix could almost, if their games completely fall into wokeness and destroy themselves, you could almost argue they could sell off their IPs and keep their business of just keeping merchandise and survive just off of that alone. Genki continues. He says, Square Enix say they are currently in a 3-year period of rebooting, shift from quantity to quality, release of multiple new titles and multi-platform titles, consistent release of large-scale titles centered on key IPs. They break it down here for fiscal year 26, 27, and beyond. And we got Octopath Traveler 0, Dragon Quest 7 Reimagined, Final Fantasy 7 Integrate Remake, and is that Elliot? What's that game called? Can't remember that one. Killer Inn, a murder mystery action game, which I'm very, very curious about, and other games unannounced as well. There's some potential. There's some potential for them moving forward, but it's not without some major restructuring going on. Scouter V says, looks like Square Enix finally realized that the purple hairs are bad for business. They are going to consolidate development functions in Japan. And in a previous video, I talked about how they did some serious restructuring, read layoffs in America and Europe. And basically, this is the second year in a row they've done that. Means that they're reorganizing to put everything back to Japan and make the decisions in Japan proper, where America and Europe won't have the power to overrule and say, oh, but we need to wokeify this because reasons. Square Enix it's a do or die situation for them right now. It really is. It's been like this for a while, but it's actually only been getting worse. So they are backs against the wall, and finally, at the hopefully not too late, at the last opportunity, finally making decisions to bring things back to Japan. But things aren't all roses for the games in the future, because I saw Pirate Nation post on X earlier today that according to a new survey, and I don't know if it's really new because when I researched it, it's July of this year. So new enough, I guess, a few months ago. The typical age of a Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy player is 42. A Japanese company conducting market research polled 180,000 gamers in the country. The results show which titles younger buyers are flocking to. Several Square Enix games, including Final Fantasy releases, are struggling to find new audiences. And that in itself is something that I've never really seen a company deal with. Maybe it's because gaming is, on the whole, kind of a new thing when it comes to the age that we're living in right now. But Square Enix's customers are aging with the company. That's concerning. It's almost like they need to start doing what Nintendo does, where they continually introduce games for everyone and all ages, and challenges and difficulty levels are open for them. This is the survey that Pirate Nation was referencing from Notebook Check. It says, a Japanese survey may predict a troubling future for Square Enix and its Final Fantasy games. I'm not going to read through this whole thing, but like we said, 180,000 gamers in the country were surveyed. and revealed their gender and age splits. And the overall age of 30 years isn't noteworthy, but there are some surprises. In particular, some of the oldest respondents from support Square Enix titles. These include Final Fantasy games, which aren't appealing to younger consumers. And I'll tell you guys, outside of Final Fantasy VII remakes, I kind of fell out of the Final Fantasy direction myself. And this is coming from one of the biggest Final Fantasy fans from back in the day on the planet. Final Fantasy 6, Final Fantasy 7, even I know it's kind of the redheaded stepchild, but I love Final Fantasy 8. I know people say Final Fantasy 9 is their favorite. I thought it was good. I liked 8 better than 9. I kind of started falling out of it with X. Final Fantasy 10. I didn't love the whole blitzball stuff and Titus. It wasn't my game. I was like, yeah, no. I tried again with Final Fantasy, was it 12 or I think it was 12. And it was fun. It was fun, but they've gone to so many different renditions and waves that I feel like it's lost its identity of what made it special. And they were trying too hard to keep up with what other games were doing instead of remembering what made Final Fantasy special. So nobody wants to keep playing it. That's the problem. And it's really hard once you lose people and once a series gets so long in the tooth, what's going to make the next edition so special that people who haven't played the last 9 of them or 8 of them or 7 of them to come back and play it? What's going to make it special? According to the survey, typical age of Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy player is 42. The franchise debuted in 86, 87, so it's not shocking they have a veteran fan base. Still, Square Enix remains invested in both, with remasters and brand new entries planned. At the same time, the publisher admitted in 2025 that it wasn't meeting all of its sales goals. So there you go. This is all the ages that they have for the games and the projects that they talk about. Of course, Switch 2 games, tremendous following in Japan, family friendly, younger audiences, 27 for Splatoon, things like that. But yeah, for Square Enix, it's not great. And then we get to the shift in dynamics after the big cutbacks and layoffs that they had in the US and Europe. They follow that up. This is Video Games Chronicle saying Square Enix says it wants generative AI to be doing 70% of its QA and debugging by the end of 2027, which I got to be honest, I don't know how that, as a former QA tester myself at Sony Online Entertainment, I don't know how AI would do it because like maybe they have programs that would be able to replicate a person playing through it and understand where the issues are in it. But I'll tell you guys from firsthand experiences, there are bugs that I found in the games that I don't know how AI would have found them because it took a person to find them. And some of them were like some of the biggest bugs in the game. And they were like later on in the game, things like that. Like one of the bugs that I found one time was in Cash Guns Chaos. It didn't happen at the beginning of the game, but on like the 3rd or 4th level, which it was a very challenging game. So getting there was hard enough. So when you're on the 3rd or 4th level, there was certain enemies, not all of them, mind you, and only certain times with certain variables that happen, where if you killed them, they would die and disappear, but they'd actually still be alive and there, just invisible. And I was randomly just running around the room and just dying. And I'm like, I don't know what just killed me there. And I thought I was going crazy. And I told the developers, like, hey, I'm having issues here. I know it's not me that's dying. I am good at this game and it's not killing me. I'm getting around these bullets. It's a bullet hell game like Smash TV. And it's not me that's dying. And I couldn't replicate it consistently. So I'm like, I don't know what it is, but sometimes I just die on this level and it's like nothing even hits me. So back then, they actually had VCRs and videotapes so that they would record it and play the tape back when it happened. And that's how they discovered they're like, oh, you're just dying randomly. We have no idea what that is. So they'd have to run the debug on that certain area, that certain level, and through over and over, replicating it over and over again, they were able to determine, oh, here's what the issue is. One of the values was off on one of these characters that made that happen. Will AI be able to find that? Maybe. I just think that it's going to be very challenging. And in the grand scheme, that's kind of a basic game compared to the advancements the games are now. So relying on AI to do that work, I don't know. There are other times where I would be having the headphones on, and my job for that day would just be to just sit there and listen to the music tracks and ensure that none of them skipped and that there were no hiccups or audio issues or anything like that. So again, I don't know how AI could listen to a track and tell you that and know for sure that there's not an issue without a actual human being like, yep, I can confirm that. So sure, AI can assist it, but I feel confident in saying that this is one of those jobs that AI could never replace 100%, unless it gets to the point where AI is basically a person, which maybe that's a thing. But anyways, I kind of digress. Let's get to this story. Square Enix says it wants generative AI to be doing 70% of its QA and debugging by the end of 2027. The publisher is researching game QA automation technology with the University of Tokyo. Square Enix says it wants the majority of its QA and debugging work to be handled by generative AI within the next 2 years. I think they got some high hopes. By the way, not saying they can't do it. I just wonder about how well that will work out for them. Following the release of its latest financial results, the publisher posted a progress report on its medium-term business plan, which was originally announced last year. Which, by the way, real quick, do you guys notice a trend with society of just of less employees, paying people less to do to do more, giving people less for what they pay, charging more for the products, and finding ways to get them to them cheaper? It just feels like people are getting less and less and paying more and more. And the studios are still looking to cut people from working there. And back in the day, this was never a thing. They would pay all their employees a living wage and sell the games with a physical cartridge, a map, an instruction booklet, a cardboard box around it, all the inserts and everything like that, put it on a truck, ship it to a store, and only get half the profit from the store at the end of the day. And they made it work back then. But for some reason, they can't do that now. It makes me wonder about how greedy the industry is. As part of this plan, Square, and maybe, by the way, it's not just greed of the industry. It also makes me wonder about the macroeconomics of society at large, too. But that's a whole nother story for another day. As part of this plan, Square Enix says it launched a partnership with the Matsuo Iwasawa Laboratory of the University of Tokyo, which is aimed at improving the efficiency of game development processes through AI technologies. The project, which is titled Joint Development of Game QA Automation Technology, God, that is a mouthful, using generative AI, is being tackled as a joint research team of more than 10 members, including researchers from University of Tokyo and engineers from Square Enix's group. The goal, according to the report, is to automate 70% of QA and debugging tasks in game development by the end of 2027. Imagine, by the way, being on a team of QA at Square Enix and seeing this story drop. It's like TikTok, time to start looking for another job somewhere else because they're looking to get rid of me actively right now. It says that by using automation technology, Square Enix will aim to improve the efficiency of QA operations and establish a competitive advantage in game development. I mean, maybe I don't have much confidence in this at the current point, but who knows what the future holds. The topic of AI being used for QA roles has been debated for some time now. While those favor it argue that QA testing can be repetitive and a boring job, yes, it can. Others argue humans are better at spotting and describing abnormalities while testing a game. Yeah, I would say yes to both. The other argument often made is that replacing humans with AI could result in the loss of numerous job opportunities. Some see QA roles as a potential gateway into the higher paid, more creative roles in a company over time. And this, by the way, I'm so glad it went into this because this is like the silent killer for game development in the future. By taking entry level jobs away, you're in essence pulling the ladder up and not letting anyone else into the industry the way it used to work, at least. But when a door closes, a window opens, or however the saying goes, because I would argue when I was in the game development world, that was the only way to get into gaming. Nowadays, it's so different. You can go to school to learn about game development and then utilize ChatGPT. There's numerous avenues online to self-publish your own game, itch.io, things like that. You have Kickstarters available, stuff like that. Like back when I was there, it's like none of this shit was available. You had to go through the course of start at QA, then go on to development, then go on to other areas in leadership at the company. That was typically how it used to work. Last month, it was reported that Electronic Arts staff are finding it a challenge to carry out management's demands, that they use AI tools for just about everything, including QA. One former Respawn employee who worked in a senior QA role told Business Insider that he believes one of the reasons he was working among 100 colleagues laid off this last spring is because AI was reviewing and summarizing feedback from playtesters, a job he usually did. I mean, fair. It sucks, bro, but if there is a job that you're doing that AI can do as good as you, or let's be honest, probably better, you will be replaced across the board, which again leads me to conversations I've had plenty of times about the macroeconomic systems and problems of society stemming from that. But that's not the game studio's problem. That's the government's problem. The game studios is trying to stay alive in this area. Or in this current modern world that we find ourselves in. The replacing of staff with AI for QA purposes is something that has been actively pursued by some publishers and developers for a number of years. Back in 2022, Xbox Game Studios head Matt Booty said it was his dream to one day have an army of artificial intelligence QA testers. I actually remember when that happened, and I think I made a video on it, if I recall correctly, because that was wild. My dream, there's going to be a lot of AI and machine learning right now, and people using AI to generate all these images, he said at the time. What I always say when I bump into the AI folks is help me figure out how to use an AI bot to go test a game. Because I would love to be able to start up 10,000 instances of a game in the cloud. So there's 10,000 copies of the game running, deploy an AI bot to spend all night testing the game. Then in the morning, we got a report because that would be transformational. He's not wrong. But again, I go back to you still need a human to interject and make sure that the game fucking works properly. And by the way, something that is often dismissed that no one really talks about when it comes to removing the human from the equation here is the feedback that a QA tester would give development is sometimes this is just not fun. Like that was one of the checkboxes we had. Like this area, this thing we had to do, I did not like this. Like an AI bot, maybe they'd be able to do that too, based off of training and stuff. But again, there's something to speak to the soul of a human when it comes to gaming that can't be replaced by a robot. And I would argue could never be. But it can be severely diminished, which means, yes, AI can assist a QA team, but you're always going to need to have humans there forever to make sure that the games work and, more importantly, are fun. But I don't know. At the end of the day, you never know the direction that technology is going to go and how advanced it's going to be at the pace that it's growing. But at this point, I guess we will see because Square Enix is out of options and they're trying last ditch efforts. I'll be interested to see what comes from this. But for now, we'll leave that one right there.